Hello, it's Melinda from Scrapbooking So welcome to my Steampunk Christmas art journal page. This one's a couple of years in the making. For any of you long-time Scrapbooking and Craft customers, you might have recognised this from a live 2 years ago that didn't get finished, finally got finished, and now I'm sticking the video up. Yeah, it took me a while. I was a bit shocked when I looked up the date and it was 2 years ago. So my page in my journal started with some scrapbook paper. One day I just wanted to use up some scraps of scrapbook paper, so I was sticking them in the backgrounds of my journal. And it's a great way to A, use up scraps, and B, start with something. So I'm just applying some white gesso because I wanted to push the patterns into the background. I didn't want them to be so bright. So just added some white gesso, Liquitex gesso, quite a transparent gesso. Can't talk today, and just wiping it back with a baby wipe. So you can see that I've still got some of the pattern showing through. By the end of the page, not a lot of it showing through, but that's the fun thing about art journaling, is you don't know where your page is going to go, so just go with it. If you cover up 90% of what you've done, doesn't matter. So now just fiddling with a napkin. This is one of my daughter's, Alexis's, lovely napkins we sell on the website. Cannot talk today. This is one of the poinsettia ones. So when you're using napkins, you've got to remove either 2 or 3 white layers off the back of the napkin. And the napkin, you just want the top translucent sheet, which becomes quite fragile. So you've got to be a little careful. And if you want to check that you've got either 2 or 3 layers, take one layer off. Usually the first layer comes off really easily. And put it over a piece of book text or a piece of writing. And you should be able to see the writing through. If it's a bit white and hazy, you probably have a second layer to remove. So just tearing that into chunks. If I wanted to cut a specific area out, I would have used a water technique, a water brush, drew around the shape on the napkin and gently separate it, but I just wanted hunks of it on my page. Didn't really know what I was doing on this page. This actually was filmed with my daughter. You'll see her hands off to the right hand side. I have cropped this down and sped this video up. There will be a long version of this video on the YouTube channel and this sped up version as well. So when you're gluing napkins down, you want to glue it down with quite a liquid glue. So I love to use matte medium, and there I'm using Liquitex matte medium. So the way I remember that is it's a very thin napkin, like tissue paper, like rice paper. You want a thin or liquidy adhesive. So you put some where your napkin's going to go on your surface, and then you go over the top of your napkin very gently to seal the napkin in. It does two things. It means the napkin is totally adhered to your page. But it also means if you make a mistake with any sort of medium on top of the napkin, that matte medium has put a protective barrier on it and you can wipe it off. If you don't put the matte medium on the top and you put something on the napkin, that colour will soak into the napkin and you won't be able to remove it. So I'm grabbing out some Daniel Wakely paints, and I apologise I cannot read the names, but I believe there's like a metallic copper, there's... could be Sedona or Cheddar, and I think it could be a sepia colour, a darky brown colour. As I said, I did this 2 years ago. So just playing around with a few of my white laser cut die cuts that I also sell on my website. Now some of these die cuts that I'm using may not specifically be on the website as white cutouts. I'm never going to be able to produce every shape I make in white cutouts, black cutouts, and chipboard. So I pick a selection to do in white and black, but I am open to custom orders. So if you want to reproduce this page completely yourself and you don't see these as a white option, you can either order them as chipboard and send me a note and say, I've just placed order 1,000. Please cut the reindeer, the baubles, and the tree out of white cardstock instead of chipboard. Or you can just email me a list and say, can I have these pieces out of white cardstock? So it's all cut out of white. At the moment I'm using Bearty's 200 GSM mixed media cardstock because I do like to put a lot of paint and ink and things on the cutouts at this stage, and that seems to be a really good paper. Cuts really well and it takes mixed media very well. Love to finger paint. So I am finger painting with some of the colours, just going over the napkin and in the free spaces. The reason I'm going over the napkin in a little bit is to knock back. I wanted that white sort of gone, but the colours of the napkin still show through, of the sort of the red and the greens. And I wanted to blend the napkin into the background. So going over the background and onto the napkin a bit helps to blend in those edges. There's Alexis's little hands. Shouldn't call her little. She was little back then 2 years ago. No, she was, I think, 13 at this stage. No, yes, 13. Oh no, probably just 12. Hadn't turned 13 yet. So she wasn't that teenager that we have in our house now. So now I'm just adding a bit of darkness. I believe this is the dark. It's a darkish brown, and I do apologise, I don't have the colours. But you could reproduce this with similar colours. I'm going to have such a problem with words today. You'll see me keep putting the white cutouts back on the page because I'm still umming and ahhing about where I'm going or what I'm doing. A lot of my art journal pages I have sort of, I pick what I want to do as a focal image, or I pick I want to use that napkin, and it sort of starts from there. Now this is another stencil I sell in my store. I'll link these products on the Facebook post where this video is. So you can find them. So this is what we call reverse stenciling. So instead of grabbing a sponge and putting your paint through your stencil, you're actually putting paint directly on your surface, and this will only work over paint or over gel medium. It does not work on raw paper. So you basically put your paint down while it's still wet, put your stencil on top, grab a wet baby wipe, not too wet but not dry, and wipe away the paint. And you sort of get the reverse stencil. So just explaining in the live there that it works better with lacy stencils. The more lacy the stencil, the better it works because you're removing a lot of the paint. Does that make sense? Clear as mud, right? So when you're using the reverse stencil, you're getting obviously the reverse effect. If I was to use that square stencil, I would get squares on my page. I didn't really want squares. I wanted sort of the grid effect. So it's a second way of getting a second look out of your stencils. So this is the traditional way to use a stencil, is using a makeup wipe, and I believe I'm using a goldy colour, goldy bronzy colour to, that was Alexis's swirly stencil she was working with. She handed me for some particular reason. So just adding some stenciling in a few places. I like to add it in about 3 places. It's sort of 3 seems to be a good number on your page, and you can have 1 big space and 2 little spaces. So basically you're working with the background until you're happy. And my happiness level is different to your happiness level. Some days I don't even get to my happiness level. It just depends. Art journaling for me is all about the time I spend in my journal, the time I take away from all my life, from my daughter, from my business. Well, this was done for my business, but it's time I take away from all the other stresses in life, sit down and just have a play. If the end result is not exactly what I thought it would be, I don't care. Doesn't matter. Most of the art journal pages I do nowadays, I do like in some form or the other. But if I don't like them, that's okay. I can close my journal. I never have to look at that page again. If I really hate it, I get the glue out and stick the 2 pages together. So again, just bringing those white cutout pieces back in. Then I decided I wanted some more elements. So I had these trees hanging around. This is from a Delusions stamp set, or Dina Reevely stamp set. One of her Christmas stamps. So I thought that might go. I tend to just grab what's within grabbing distance on my desk. I have loads of crafting supplies, as a lot of us do. But to go look for something, yeah. No, I usually just grab what's on my desk. Who else does that? So, grabbing out some baubles. So these white ones are laser cut as well. Before this live, Alexis and I just went and run a couple of sheets through the laser machine. So we had a bit of a choice of what we wanted. And I've got a bucket of bits and pieces that don't make it into packaging that I can scrummage through when I'm doing a layout and find what I want. So it's a good idea to have a couple of little boxes of bits, and you can just rummage through and find what you'd like. So just poking all the pieces out, because we were cutting these just before this live actually, on a time crunch. This is another one of my stencils. This is, I think, the large foliage stencil. So this one is a stencil and a mask. As you can see, I'm very naughty and don't actually clean my stencils. You don't really have to with paint or ink. If you're using texture paste, yes, I do go and make sure my stencils are nice and clean. So I'm wanting to sort of have some foliage across the top of the page and down the, is that the right-hand side of the page? I've got the page next to me. Down the right-hand side of the page, just to add a bit more interest, sort of, and that top top right corner was looking a bit empty. Lex is obviously using the watercolours that are sitting there. I use those in a minute too. So just using a makeup sponge again and putting the paint through the stencil. Now you want to have a lot less paint on your sponge. If you just plop it in your paint and go stenciling, you're going to get a lot of bleed through under your stencil. So you'll see me pick up the paint and dab it off a couple of times. This video is sped up 4 times, so you may see me dab it really, really quickly. But you do want to dab it off and almost have the sponge look like there's no paint left. But believe me, you've got plenty of paint to go. So just positioning my stencil, coming in further in the page, going on an angle. I love that foliage stencil. And it also comes with a mask too. So it comes with the big shape that's cut out, which is fun to use as well. So again, putting these pieces back in. And I can tell you the left-hand side is not how it ended up. Changed my mind again. But I tend to fiddle around with my focal images, trying different things around, trying them in different spots until I'm happy. And keep bringing them in to see what colour I want to paint them as well. I think that's what I'm doing next. So I decided the trees look a bit plain and they need a bit more doodling. So I attempt to make them a little bit more mechanically looking. Well, this big one anyway. I sort of give it some more drawing and doodling on it. I love doing this. I will sit there and take these trees and just draw patterns all over them, and it calms my mind down. I'm not a colouring in person, so my colouring in on my art journal pages is very basic. If I colour at all, I'm dreadful. But I will sit there and do line work. I don't know, it's just the way my brain works. I'm more of a drawer than a colourer, and I've been like that since being a child. I would get colouring books for birthday and Christmas. I would also get a blank sketchbook, and I would copy the colouring pages. I would redraw them and almost get them exact, just because that occupied my mind more than colouring. I was never a child that enjoyed colouring in. And as you see on most of my art journal pages, there may be a little bit of colouring in. I'm not into spending a lot of time colouring. Just doesn't, it annoys me basically. The whole rage when it come out were those adult colouring fun for therapy about 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago maybe it all come out. And it was the rage to get these colouring books. I loved them and I bought a bunch of them. I either use the pages in my art journal or I go and redraw from them, which I've had a few that I really like. So using a Steampunk stencil here to add some circles to the inner of the circles. So yeah, I would buy the colouring books and an empty sketchbook and sit there and re-sketch stuff and then doodle in it and Zentangle in it and do stuff like that. It usually calms my brain when I've had a stressed day. Having quite a few of those lately. Back to the art journal page and stop going down a rabbit hole, Melinda. I did try to cut this video down as much as I could. You'll see it chopping and changing a bit with, like, things will appear on the screen. I tried to chop out a lot of, because this started as a live video, it was obviously filmed in real time. I tried to chop out a lot of the stuff that you didn't need to see, the drying of the pages, the drying of the layers, or when I'm helping Alexis out or when I'm thinking. So I tried to do that and cut it down to be as concise as possible, but without losing a lot of the detail that I put into it. Clear as mud, right? Now I decided to colour my white mixed media cardstock, and I'm just using some, I think they're Micador brand kids watercolours. They're a little chalky, but they work. So just using sort of blacks and browns to give it a bit of a colour. I add some more paint to it later, I believe, because it's got a bit of gold shine on it, and that's not the watercolours. Oh, there we go. Oh, no, that's the, what am I doing? The bauble. So using the paint with the baubles just to give them a bit more opaqueness and metallicness. Metallicness, is that a word? Trying to make them grungy and look rusty, which I think I've achieved. I have put some close-up photos at the end, and they will also be on our Facebook page, which is the same name as our YouTube channel, Scrapbookingncraft. So you'll be able to see close-ups of the page. I do use my fingers a lot. I like the feel of paint on my fingers, which my daughter is exact opposite. She will not finger paint. Never finger painted when she was a child. Always had to use a brush. But I don't know, I just find it connects me more with my journal when I finger paint. And then I don't have to clean up a brush. Oh, maybe I'm just lazy. So who likes to finger paint on their pages? Especially I'm doing the background. I don't know, it's just connects me and grounds me more to my page. And I don't know, I've always done that. So I like how the baubles are looking. They look a little lost on the page at the moment, but they do stand out a bit more in the finished process. It's really hard when filming videos to get the lighting sort of correct. Here I'm adding a bit more darkness to the tree, trying to give them a bit more tonal colour, multicolours than just one flat colour, if that makes sense. So trying to get some darks in there and some lights on the smaller pieces is a bit harder, but I think I've achieved what the look I was going for. So now I decided the trees are white and they don't need to be, so this is my extent of colouring, just slapping some colour on the trees. I'm dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. I could have painted the individual baubles and stuff, but it's, as I said, it's not what makes me happy, but I think I like how they turned out. I do go add some gold pen a bit later to the bigger tree and the little one just to make it a bit more fancy. And those paper trees are only printed on about 160 GSM paper. So I've just got to be a little careful of how much, actually it might be on photocopy paper. No, I think that's 160 GSM. Just got to be a little careful of how much water I add to the paper. I didn't want to over soak the paper. I have these 3 reindeers and I'm trying my hardest to use them. But alas, only one makes the final cut of the page. I decided I wanted a second colour with the leaves up the top, so I go a bit more of a bluey colour. Oh, excuse the rocking of the table. So when I'm designing or thinking about the end product of an art journal page, I like to have 3 planes in my art journal page or 3 depths. I sort of have a background, which is obviously the base of the page and all the colours. The middle ground is sort of my trees and my reindeer, and my foreground or my front pieces are those leaves. So it's sort of creating a bit more depth and dimension. So the leaves that are cut off, your mind assumes that they're continuing after the page. So it's good to have things connecting to the side of the page, connecting to the bottom of the page, not just sort of floating around. As I say, I don't like Harry Potter heads on my pages. I don't tend to have things floating. So in the end, I do end up grounding the trees and the reindeer with a bit of darkness below them, just so that they're not floating. And the trees or the leaves are grounded to the edge of the page, so you don't really need to do much with that. Now I'm giving my reindeer a coat of watercolours, picking up a couple of different colours on my brush, just to have him a bit more two-toned. It's a bit hard with some more of the lacier die cuts to actually get a lot of colour and depth and dimension on them, but I think I achieved the look I was going for. Steampunk, I must admit, is not my forte. It's not my strength. Give me bright colours any day. The brighter the better. Neons makes me happy. But I wanted to try something different, and I wanted to move out of my comfort zone. Sometimes I attempt things that are not in my comfort zone, and that's great with art journaling, to try something new and try something different. Obviously explaining something in the live and have no idea what I'm explaining because I took all the voices out. The original voice. Oh, now this is the bit that I did by myself, so obviously the lighting's changed, so now it's time to glue things down. I was very lucky. All these pieces stayed in my journal for 2 years of this journal being carted around, thrown on bookshelves, opened up, used. I was very surprised to find all the pieces still there, which is unusual. I'm trying to finish up things this year, and I've got quite a few journals on the go and quite a few with just a few pages left, or a couple of unfinished pages, so I'm trying to get them used up before the end of 2022. That is a fantastic glue. It's from my friend at Hillbilly Scrapping, and it's Couture Creations Art multi-purpose glue, I think it's called. And you buy an additional metal tip to go on the top, and it's great for really small stuff. And it sticks the 400 GSM cardstock, it sticks chipboard. It is a very strong glue. It is a wonderful investment, that one. Not that it's too expensive compared to other glues on the market, but I do like it because you can get a fine tip. When I'm gluing something like the tree or the baubles, I tend to put glue on only the fattest or the biggest areas of paper. I don't have to get glue 100% on every small fine piece. So now I've decided that I want to do some outlining on the leaves just to pop them out a bit because they were sort of blending in a bit too much. And I do apologise, my head does get in the shot a fair bit now because I'm working on more detail. For anyone that's new to my channel and my business, I do have low vision. And V-Line, no, wrong one, starts with V. Vic roads are very mean and won't give me a driver's licence. I don't have the vision for it. Who needs to see to drive, right? So unfortunately, when I'm doing line work and detail, my big head does get in the way. And it looks like I need to go to the hairdresser and get all those grey hairs taken off. Re-dyed a different colour, but I do apologise. I can't find a different setup for filming at the moment that I can leave my head out of it, but you can still see what I'm doing because I do have to be quite close to my page. I am getting a bit older and I do need to go get a pair of reading glasses, so that may help, but I just haven't got there yet. I don't want reading glasses, I'm getting old. So I'm using a silver gel pen from Typo just to go around the blue leaves. And I end up using a black Uniball Micron to go around the green ones, just to give it a bit more dimension. And they're quite sketchy lines. You'll see that in the detail close-ups later. Now I've grabbed my Stabilo oil pencil. Now if you've not heard of a Stabilo oil pencil, it is a water-soluble pencil, so a watercolour pencil would work, an Inktense pencil would work. The Stabilo oil pencil is very pigmented, so if you hit it with if you press too hard and then hit it with a bit of water, you get a nice black deep shadow. So shadowing around the cutouts, sort of attach and ground them to the page. If you don't do that, they sort of look like they're stuck just on the page and just hanging around. But I'm just using a water brush there and a baby wipe just to soak up any extra darkness I get and any big blobs of colour I get. The Stabilo oil pencil will write over anything, so it goes over the napkin, it goes over gel medium, it goes over just about anything. And they come in a variety of different colours. I think I've got a green, a red, if I can find them, a yellow somewhere. There's a white one. White one doesn't work as well, but the black one's probably the one I use 90% of the time. So just adding a bit of shadow around all the die cuts I have put on the page. And I see a lot of art journalists do this. And it just, if you try it, if you haven't done it before and you just stick an image on and then you try it, you'll notice that it just transforms the page and gives your page a lot more depth as well. So you can shadow just on one side, say just on the left-hand side and maybe the bottom, or you can shadow all the way around like I am doing. And sometimes I do put too much on. Because it's water soluble and stays water soluble forever, you can actually take it off with a baby wipe if you need to. So I sort of put a bit of shadowing around the inside of the baubles too to sort of bring them out and look as if they're hanging, and they're the first thing you see, the leaves are the second thing you see, and then the background is obviously the background. Almost looks like that reverse stenciling of all those squares, almost looks like a wrought iron gate behind my baubles. As you can tell, my book gets moved around, upside down, round on the side. It's easier for me to see where I'm doing, and I just find it easier to have the part that I'm doing or scribbling on instead of leaning up to the top of the book. Does that make sense? So it's probably just my eyesight, but you do what you need to do when you art journal. Don't follow what this crazy person does. So just doing some really scribbly lines around the black. Sometimes outlining stenciling makes it pop and you can make it stand out. So if it's a bit dark, you can put a bit of white on it, or I put a bit of silver on it. Or if it's a bit light, you can put a bit of dark, sort of black or brown on it to push it and pull it to the different depths that you want it to be. Just be consistent. So all the blue leaves I put silver on and all the green leaves I put black on. So I didn't just randomly do them. Now I'm just adding a bit of silver to the tree. Sorry, big view of my head. I have to work on some different filming angles, but then my camera won't be directly over the top of me. You'll get a side view. I don't know. Maybe I just need new eyes. Can that be my wish for 2023? Can I have a new set of eyes? So I'm adding a border around the edge as well, wanting to sort of frame the page. 90% of my pages do get a frame border. I'm using a 3mm paint pen just because I can control the small amount of paint that comes out, and I'm just smudging it with my finger. I look absolutely rainbow coloured by the time I'm finished an art journal page. And I'm just doing in between the leaves because I want the leaves to come forward and I want the border to be sort of in the middle ground. Does that make sense? So just picking it up and seeing what I need to add to it. Some girls appeared on my page. I went looking for a quote, and these Tim Holtz girls, I call them dead people, paper dolls I think they're actually called, so Tim Holtz paper dolls, were just sitting there, and I thought, oh, I wonder if they'll fit. So they just sort of fitted. I found two, and then I found a little baby sister to go with them as well. And then I put a saying on my page, Dear Santa, is it too late to negotiate? I love Diane Reevely's sayings, and they are just so quirky and so cool. Because I'm sticking these paper sayings over paint, over paint and over napkins, I do like to add extra glue. Just saw my other glue there from the reject shop, trying to use that one up. But I do like that one for the Couture Creations one, for the thinness of the tip you can get. So I always add more glue to stickers because sometimes over paint, gel medium, napkin, it's not a smooth surface and it doesn't like to sit there. So I grabbed the silver pen and just did some squiggly lines around the words, again just to ground them. They look totally different when you put them on the... when you put that little bit of lining around them here. I decided that the two girls were just not doing it, so I rummaged through my paper dolls and found a little sister. I love that the paper dolls come in two sizes. So I can imagine three sisters getting up to lots of mischief. So we're coming to the conclusion of the video. I don't know what I was explaining. This was filmed in real time, as I said. But thank you all so much for all of your support in 2022 for my business and the launch of my new website and being so patient with that in July of 2022. Onward and upward, I've got huge plans for 2023. Loads of things in the pipe works. Have to see if they come out of the pipe works or they just trolley along. But I've got some exciting things planned and can't wait to share that with all you in due time. So this video is about to finish. As I said, I've got some close-up pictures at the end, and I will catch up with you again soon. If you do want to see the very chatty, nearly 3-hour video of this, it is available on our YouTube channel as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you all again soon. Happy crafting, and have a happy new year. Bye for now.